According to WebARX Security, financial, healthcare, and retail organizations are all prime targets for hackers daily in 2024. This year, around 30,000 websites are going to be hacked every single day all over the world. Cybersecurity is no joke, but you are not defenseless. My aim is to educate you in the tools and strategies that you're going to need to defend your website from hackers effectively. I will walk you through the essential steps to secure your website and safeguard it against cyber attacks. From implementing strong firewalls to using robust encryption methods. From improving authentication to monitoring your suspicious activity, you're going to learn the best practices to protect your website's infrastructure. Today, I'm going to talk with you about reasons why hackers want to infiltrate your site. Then I'm going to explain how things work, so how your website is, the internet, firewalls, WAFs, and so much more. After you have a basic understanding of how things work, I'm going to point out vulnerable points on your website that you should be mindful of. After explaining these vulnerable points, I'm going to lay out standard practices for you to safeguard your website and digital assets. Finally, at the end of the video, I'm going to give you guys solid actionables that you can take and apply in order to safeguard your website from hackers. If you want to skip straight to the actionables at the end of the video, that's perfectly fine with me. Just keep in mind that knowledge is power, and the more that you know about your website, how it works, and common cyber attacks, the more successfully you're going to be able to defend your website from incursion. Now join me as we navigate the ever-evolving landscape of cybersecurity, helping you to fortify your site against the persistent advance of hackers. Let's begin. Now, it's important to keep in mind two things when you're watching this video. First, I'm not a cybersecurity expert. I've built a lot of websites in my day, and I've had a couple of them get hacked before, and I'm just a freelance web designer who's trying to share his knowledge of cybersecurity and his previous experience with it. Secondly, cybersecurity is always evolving. It's a constantly changing landscape. There are masters in this industry that are still unable to anticipate every single attack, and so that's why it's important to stay informed and take preventative action as much as you can. Let's talk about some reasons why someone would want to hack your website. First of all, there's really only two motivations behind hacking a website. The first would be hacking in order to make money somehow, and then the other would just be destruction, plain and simple. Everything else just falls under the umbrella of those two options. So reason number one why I think people would want to hack your website would be to steal information. When hackers are able to steal information of any kind, they're able to sell it to third parties that are interested in that information. They can steal financial information like credit cards or payment information from your customers. They can steal contact information from your website visitors and then sell that information to unethical ad agencies that want to spam your visitors with really frustrating ads. And then they can also steal login information from your visitors as well. A number of attacks could easily be perpetrated with login information and access to your website. So reason number two is just pure destruction. Sometimes your website gets hacked and they just destroy it from the inside out. This can sometimes coincide with wanting the thrill or practice of hacking websites, but nonetheless, destruction is definitely an option. Now, reason number three would be a CNC attack participation. CNC stands for command and control. A CNC attack is where a hacker takes advantage of a vulnerability and gains access to some sort of computing device. He does this to a vast array of computing devices, whether it be computers, laptops, or anything else that has computing capability. After gaining command and control of these thousands of devices, a hacker can use this power to launch a DDoS attack, which is a distributed denial of service attack, where the hacker will access a much larger website with a very large amount of bots with computing power with the hopes of destroying, sabotaging, or downing the large site with too many requests all at the same time. One of the most well-known and largest DDoS attacks examples would be in 2017 when attackers flooded 180,000 web servers from Google with 2.54 terabytes per second of data. Now, most DDoS attacks are measured in gigabytes per second, so an attack that large was thousands of times bigger. Now, obviously your website is not as big as Google, but your website can be hacked and used in conjunction with hundreds of thousands of other hacked devices to launch a large-scale DDoS attack like this. Now, reason number four would be malvertising. Malvertising is just basically when an online advertising network gets attacked in order to display deceptive ads that will redirect your visitors to unsafe locations. So when your website visitors click on an ad on your website, they're going to be taken to an unsafe and unsecure site with malicious intentions. Reason number five would be SEO spam. Now, SEO spam is when hackers just use your site's authority to promote false information. Lastly, reason number six would be just pure thrill and challenge of hacking someone's website. Sometimes there's no motivation other than just seeking the thrill or providing for their hacking skills through challenges. So, as frustrating as it might sound, sometimes the reason is as simple as this. There may be more reasons why people would want to hack your website, as cybersecurity is constantly evolving and changing, but these are the reasons that I was able to put together for you. Now that you understand why someone would want to hack your website, let's first talk about how things work before we start talking about how to protect your website. So what even is your website technically? For those of you who don't know how the internet works, your website, contrary to how it looks, is actually just a bunch of code on a screen. It actually looks more like this. But your computer knows how to read the code and displays it in a way that you can understand. Now that code, which is your website, is stored on a server somewhere that's connected to the internet. And that's actually what web hosting is. Saving your website files on a server that's connected to the internet. Usually you have to rent that space on the server. The internet, on the other hand, is just a large network of servers that are all around the world. And they're all connected to each other so that computers can communicate with any server anywhere in the world. Now, when you create your website and you store it on one of those servers that's connected to the internet, people anywhere in the world can request that website from that server and it will be sent to their computer wherever they are. That's a very basic understanding of the internet. So how do we communicate with the internet? Well, your computer communicates with the internet in the form of network packets. These network packets are like little envelopes that hold source address, destination address, and the information inside. Whenever you want to visit a website, your computer sends multiple packets to the server that's holding the website via the internet. The website is then sent to your computer from the web server via another set of packets. So what happens if a hacker intercepts your packets in transit? Well, that's where a firewall comes into play, as well as encryption. Imagine a digital firewall as a physical wall around your house. In order to prevent robbers and unwanted guests, you want a wall up around your house. A firewall is the same thing, but you're putting a wall up around your computer. Your firewall has a set of rules and protocols when it comes to network packets. Your firewall will monitor the traffic that goes in and out of your computer and determines what is good traffic and what is bad or malicious traffic. It lets the good packets go right on through and then blocks the bad network packets. So a firewall is mostly access control. Encryption, on the other hand, is locking the envelope in a lockbox while it's sent over the internet. Long story short, this is where your SSL certificate comes into play, as well as HTTPS. When you want to sign up for web hosting, your website will receive an SSL certificate. This is a certificate from a trusted source saying that you are who you say you are and that you're verified. This certificate, paired with your HTTPS, which is the encryption for your network packets, is what ensures a secure connection when you surf the web. I don't want to get too complicated and start breaking down the differences between a firewall or a WAF, and there's different types and things like that. So for now, you have a basic understanding that will help you protect your website because you know how it works. Now that you understand what a website is and how the internet works, you can start to think through how to secure your website as best as you can. First of all, I gotta say, I've learned a lot about website security over the years, and the one thing that I want to make very clear is that most of your website security is going to be handled by your hosting provider, because they're the one in control of the web server that you're storing your website on. It is their responsibility to keep the server safe and protected. That being the case, you can take steps to protect your website on top of the web hosting security that you already have when you sign up. Let's go ahead and talk about the vulnerable points that are on your website that you need to be aware of and how you can take steps to secure them. Now, the first most obvious vulnerable point on your website would be password management. Human error is a real thing, and trying to remember complicated passwords is not very easy for us humans. Having weak passwords that are easily guessed or generated is a problem that really needs to be fixed. Be sure to have minimum requirements for your users' passwords, like the minimum amount of characters and required special characters. Now, next would be your login screen. Now, there's a lot of back and forth about hiding your login screen. Some people say it really helps, and some people say it doesn't. I say if it's easy to do and it helps a little bit, you might as well do it. Now, anytime you have a WordPress website, you can just add wp-admin to the back of the homepage URL and you'll be taken to the login screen. There are plugins that allow you to hide your WordPress login screen to a different URL so that when people try to add this to the end of your homepage, it will just say that the page isn't found or give an error. Now, this is a simple solution, but if your hacker isn't that good, this can help prevent him from trying a brute force attack on your login page. Another solution to brute force attacks on your login screen would be limiting the number of attempts you have to log in. Because all a brute force attack is having a computer run thousands of attempts to try and guess your password. If you add a limit to the number of attempts that you're allowed to try down to like 3 or 5, then this will eliminate brute force attacks. But hiding your login screen will also help, because how are they going to attempt your password if they don't even know where to put it? Another vulnerable point would be unsafe themes inside of WordPress. WordPress has tons of free themes that you can use to build your website, but not all of them are very security conscious or hacker proof. Paid themes offer a better defense against hackers, but if you stick to the most common and high-performing free themes like Astra, for example, you should be fine. According to Web ARX Security, content management system platforms like WordPress, which host over 40% of all websites on the internet, are hacked 98% of the time by vulnerabilities that come from plugins. There's so many plugins out there, but a lot of them are quite vulnerable to hacks, especially when they're out of date. Be sure to keep your plugins up to date to prevent extra vulnerabilities and keep your plugins to a minimum if you can. If you're not using a plugin on your site anymore, then just make sure you remove it. Weak security policies are another surefire way to leave your website open to attack. Be sure to put in place specific rules and policies for your admins, employees, and users to ensure a safe and secure practice when interacting with your website. This could be policies like password length and character requirements, or having frequent network scans or something like that. Putting rules in place to keep your website secure is very important. Social engineering is one of the biggest reasons why websites get hacked, and it's where you manipulate the human aspect of a computer. Instead of trying to hack a password, why wouldn't you just try to squeeze it out of a person that talks too much, for example? Manipulating the people of an organization to gain access is what we call social engineering, and the way that you combat this is by having strong security policies for your employees when they're accessing your website. Lastly, the second most common vulnerability on any website would have to be out-of-date software. This ties in with plugins, making your website quite vulnerable because having out-of-date plugins on your website can allow hackers opportunities to attack your website. Also, be sure to keep your WordPress workspace updated as well. It's widely known that out-of-date software is one of the most common reasons why any system gets hacked. It's quite literally what updates are for. Most of the time, updates to plugins or WordPress are security updates and patches to vulnerabilities that they've already found. So keep your software up to date. Now that you know about the vulnerable points on your website, let's talk about some standard practices to safeguard your website. First and foremost, update your site regularly. Try to make a habit of logging into your website every few days and just double checking the update tab to make sure that your themes, plugins, and WordPress databases are all up to date with the latest version. It's incredibly easy and immediately negates one of the most common reasons why websites get hacked. From your WordPress dashboard, you can click on the rotating arrow update icon, and then you can click on updates right here. Once you're on the updates page, all you have to do is just select everything you want to update and click on update. It's really that simple. Next, you want to make sure that you stay informed on all of the up-to-date news and most common cyber attacks done by watching videos just like this one. Staying informed can be your #1 standard for practicing defense on your website. The more you know, the better you can defend. And this is especially true nowadays with the introduction of AI into cybercrime. 85% of security professionals are attributing the rise of cybercrime this year to bad actors using generative AI, according to CFO News. AI has a lot of advantages, but it can also be used in harmful ways, so make sure you stay informed. My third standard practice for you would be to control access to your website. Be careful who you give admin access to and constantly pay attention to your user database. Constantly be on the lookout for what it looks like to have fake users or bot users and then promptly remove them from your website. From your WordPress dashboard, just go over to the users tab and then you can look through your list of anyone that looks suspicious. If you find one that obviously looks like spam, you can promptly remove it like this. Fourth on my list of standard practices would be to ensure that you have an SSL certificate on your website. Now, this goes back to having a trusted hosting provider to store your website with, because most hosting providers nowadays are going to offer you an SSL certificate along with your website. If you don't have an SSL certificate on your website, you'll see a not secure sign next to your URL in Google. You want to make sure that you have a lock icon to let people know that you're safe and secure to visit. I won't go into the ways of how to get one in this video, just make sure that you understand that it's necessary to have one for your website security and for your web visitors' confidence. My last standard practice for you would be to improve your network security policies. Improving your network security policy would be setting up rules for yourself and your visitors that would improve the security of your website. Examples of this would be enabling monthly password resets, or having a login session expiration after a short period of time. Maybe you want to include password length and character requirements. Or you can have frequent network scans of your website via security plugins or some kind of service like that. All of these would be great examples of policies that you can use for your website admins and for your users. Now it's time for action. Let's talk about what you can actually do to protect your website on top of the security that you're already receiving from your hosting provider. First, we're going to start with downloading a plugin. Now, there's two really popular WordPress security plugins out there, and if you've done any research for yourself, then you probably see a bunch of people saying which one they think is best. You've got WordFence and Solid Security, formerly known as iThemes. Both plugins basically do the same thing with a couple of pricing and feature differences, but I recommend Solid Security simply because it's a little bit cheaper paper, and in my opinion, it works great. Let's go ahead and download it now. So from your WordPress dashboard, we're just gonna go over to the plugins tab and then click on add new right here. And I always open up a new tab so I can bounce back to my dashboard whenever I need to. So from here, we'll just go to the search bar in the top right corner and we're gonna search for Solid Security. All right, and you're gonna be looking for this one right here, Solid Security. And they used to be called iThemes and now they're Solid Security, so it looks like they rebranded, but we're gonna click on Install Now and then Activate. All right, so now that we've activated it, if you go ahead and refresh your page or just go back to the dashboard, you'll see that we have a new security tab in the bottom left corner. And there it is right here. Now you'll notice whenever I hover over the security tab for Solid Security, we only have one option, and that's gonna be their setup tab. So their setup wizard. So let's go ahead and click on setup and get started. All right, perfect. So the first step in their setup wizard is going to be determining what kind of website you have. So you can do e-commerce, a network, nonprofit, blog, portfolio, or brochure. And brochure is basically just a simple website to promote your business. And so that's what this one is. You'll see that it's Strength Gym CAPW. It's like I'm pretending that I'm a gym owner. So this is just a brochure website for my gym. So come and join me, right? Come sign up for classes and all of that. So that being the case, we're going to go ahead and sign up for a brochure website security. Next, it's going to ask if you want to enable your Security Check Pro, and we're going to check yes to this box and then click on next. And so by the way, for those of you who don't know, and this is your first time using Solid Security, whenever you download the plugin, it has this setup wizard, and you're basically saying yes or no to all of these steps down below. These are actually different tabs inside of the security setting once we finish the setup. And under each one of these, for example, the Security Check Pro and other tabs, there's a bunch of settings underneath. And so you're basically asking, hey, do you want all of the default settings for this category set? Yes. How about for the global settings category? Yes. For the features category? Yes. So that's basically what we're doing. So I'll show you a breakdown of the plugin once we get in, but for now, we're just basically going to check yes to all of these. So enable Security Check Pro, yes. And then they're going to ask, are you building a website for yourself or is it for a client? And we're pretending that I'm the business owner for this gym. So I'm going to say my own website. It's going to ask, do you want to secure your user accounts with a password policy? And so their password policy has a couple settings in there, like number of attempts. I think it's like 3 and 5 or something like that, to block brute force attacks and things like that. So again, there's going to be a bunch of settings behind this. We're going to say yes, set up all the default password security settings. Next. All right, next is going to ask if you have any authorized IP addresses or IP detection. So you're basically creating a list of authorized IP addresses that are never going to get blocked by Solid Security. So you want to make sure that you use your authorized IP address to add your own home address or your office or wherever you are. This is where you want to put your authorized IP address. So all you would have to do is click on authorize my IP address right now, and it's going to take your actual IP address and just throw it up there, which is pretty easy. All right, so once you've added your IP address, and you can add others if you want. If you don't know how to get your IP address from other computers and things like that, you can always go to a website called IP Chicken. If you go to this website, it'll automatically just tell you what IP address you're at. And when you go to IP Chicken, it's just automatically going to display all of your IP address information right here, so you can just copy and paste it. So if you go to a different office, you can always just have someone send you the IP address if you want to take the IP address of like one of your employees or something like that. Otherwise, you can just log on and click on authorize and it'll automatically pull yours. Next, you have IP detection. It's unconfigured. You can go unconfigured, manual, or disabled. I'm just going to leave it as unconfigured. And from here, you can check the IP if you want. And then next, we're going to click on next. Next, we have under login security, two-factor authentication, which is a really nice feature to have. I strongly recommend you turn this on, and we'll set it up a little bit later because again, we're just in the setup wizard. And then click on next. From here, you can define your user groups. So if you have a bunch of people working on your website and you have a lot of admins and a lot of employees, you can set up custom user groups. Otherwise, you can just do default user groups, but we're still going to do some configuring inside of the default user groups. So I'm going to click on this one. And then from here, this is the configuring we're going to be doing. You'll see that we have administrators, editors, authors, contributors, subscribers, and everybody else. And that's kind of the same thing as whenever you're trying to create a new user on your website. I don't know if you've ever done this before, but whenever you create new users inside of your WordPress website, you can decide right here if they want to be subscriber, contributor, author, editor, or an administrator. And so you're basically defining the rules for all of those people. So there's the 5, and then you also have everybody else. So you can go one by one and click through here and double check that everyone has the permissions that you want. So for example, for administrators, you want them to be able to edit everything. because they need to be administrators, right? So you can go through the global settings. They have access to manage solid security, which means that they can actually log in here and make changes to solid security. You can say the security dashboard. Do they have enable creation for the dashboard, which is the security dashboard? It's not here yet, but later on you'll be able to move the widgets around. So that's this one right here. Next, we have password requirements. And so are you going to require strong passwords? Definitely leave this one checked. And then refuse compromised passwords. You want to leave this one checked as well. And then lastly, we have two-factor authentication, and you have the option to let them skip two-factor authentication onboarding. I personally would leave this one on for everybody. Just make sure that everyone has to use two-factor authentication to log into the website, which is pretty important. The only one that you don't really have to do it on is your subscribers, and subscribers are basically just the random people that just create an account on your website so that they can visit and view all of your blog posts or whatever you've got. You might want them to do two-factor authentication if you want extra security, but obviously extra security means a little bit more of a hassle or a process to logging in every time. So it might kind of deter people from wanting to look at your blog if every single time they want to go and create an account, they have to log in with two-factor. So maybe under subscribers, you would just drop down here and say that they're allowed to skip it. It's completely up to you. I'm going to leave it off, so they have to do it, but you guys can make that decision. But anyways, administrators can manage solid security, but maybe you don't want your editors to be able to do so. And so you'll notice that by default, editors don't have access to these two, but they still have to do strong passwords. They still have to do two-factor. Same with authors, same with contributors, and then subscribers is the one where they obviously can't enable anything. They have to have a strong password, and you can opt in to say that they can skip two-factor. That's completely up to you guys. And then you have everybody else. You can also click on the plus button right here to create a new user group. And so from here, you can title it, and then you can change a custom group right here. If you click on edit group is where you can actually add the name. So maybe instead of all administrators, it's just you and your co-founder or something like that. Or if you're the only one who built the website, maybe it's just you, and you can select a specific user if you want. So for example, only Strength Gym CAPW, and this is Strength Gym. Well, let's just call it Strength Gym Admin. And we'll say under features, I have access to everything. So let's do strong passwords. Let's say if I want to personally only me, all of my other administrators have to do it, but maybe I don't have to do my two-factor, which I wouldn't recommend, but you can choose that. And then you can say I can manage everything. And maybe you set it to where all your other administrators can't manage your solid security, and you're the only one who has access to this. But that's how you would create custom user groups right there. But whenever you're done creating all your groups, you click on next. All right, and then the last option we have is notifications under the setup wizard. And so notifications, you can change the from email for all of the notifications regarding security for your website. So every time something happens, this is the from email. So it'll say from, and you'd want to put your business email. So, from the business website, it's going to tell these people. So you can choose default, which is all administrators receive the email, or you uncheck that and you can pick specific users. I'm just going to choose the one admin. And this will be a list of all the admins down below, but I only have one admin on my website at the moment. So whenever you choose, I'm just going to say all. There's no point to just limit it to this one, even though there is only one, so it's basically the same thing. Once you choose this, we can click on complete setup, and we're done with the setup wizard. And once you're done with the setup wizard, you can go to the dashboard or to the settings tab. So I'm just going to click on my security dashboard. And you'll notice in the bottom left corner, now under security, all of these different tabs opened up. So now it doesn't just say setup. We've got dashboard, site scan, firewall, vulnerabilities, user security, settings, tools, logs. So now the plugin is completely opened up for us to use. After you've downloaded Solid Security and finished the setup wizard, we can now talk about what you should set up next. Like I said earlier in the video, there's always a little controversy on whether or not hiding your login page does anything, but I say the more the merrier, so let's go ahead and just hide that login page. All right, so let's talk about hiding your backend. If you want to do it inside of Solid Security, you're going to go over here under Settings on the left-hand side of your WordPress dashboard. So you'll go to Settings under Security right here. So let's go ahead and just open that up on a new tab. And then under Solid Security, let's see, help us improve. You guys can choose what you want to do. I'm just going to say skip for now. So under Security, we can go to Advanced. And under the Advanced tab, you'll see Hide the Backend right here. And so we can click on the drop down. Do we want to hide the backend URL or not? So when you say yes to hide it, from here, all you would have to do is put in your login slug. So instead of WP-admin, you could type something like backend, or let's just say command seat. So if you want to be in the command seat of your website, you have to log in using this URL. So once you're done putting in your login slug, you can click on save right here. And then for example, if I were to log out of my website, I would have to go to strengthgymcapw.com/command seat. And then when I type in command seat, it's going to redirect me to the correct login. But as soon as I type in strengthgymcapw.com/ Command seat, that's what's going to take me to my login screen now. So that's how you can hide your backend. Anyways, back on your website, you guys can always disable this by just checking the box again, and now you're no longer hiding your backend, so it'll go back to the standard WP-admin if you want to, and then you can click on save. All right, so that's how you would hide your backend, but while I'm here, I might as well just show you guys some of the settings that were automatically enabled while we were inside of the setup wizard. So the first thing is we can just go one by one down these tabs under the settings tab to show all of the different features and settings that Solid Security is doing. So you can customize them a little bit to your liking for your website, however you want to do it. This is obviously personal preference. So the first thing is lockouts right here. So right now, minutes to lockout, you'll see is 15. And you'll see that basically what this is the length of time an IP address or a user will be locked out from his site after hitting the limit of failed logins. So you basically put them in timeout for 15 minutes if they tried to log in too many times with invalid logins. You guys can change this to whatever you want. If you want to change it to 60, so you lock them out for the hour, or you lock them out for 10 minutes, whatever you guys want to do, you guys can decide how long you lock them out for. Days to remember lockouts is 7 by default, but you can change this if you want to be as many days as you want. You can also see ban repeat offenders, so permanently add a locked out IP address to the banned users list after reaching the configured ban threshold. And so the ban threshold that they're talking about is right here, which is the number of lockout Solid Security must remember before permanently banning somebody. So if someone tries to log into your website and they get banned once, then they get banned twice, then they get banned 3 times, each for 15 minutes, after 3 times, it'll automatically lock out their IP address so that they can never attempt to log into your website again, unless you come in here and you remove them from the ban list. So you can either have this checked or unchecked. I would strongly recommend to check this box because obviously if someone's doing a brute force attack, they're going to try, it's going to block once, then they're going to try again, block again, one more time, and then it's going to completely ban that IP address. Now, if you want, you can lower the ban threshold. So if someone gets locked out twice, they get banned on their IP address. That's a personal preference, but I'd recommend kind of keeping this number low. Anyways, after the lockout, you can edit your lockout messages. I don't really see any reason to. The defaults are fine. It just says error. If you lock out the first time, the user lockout message says, you've been locked out for too many attempts. And then the community lockout message is, your IP address has been flagged as a threat by Solid Security Network. You can type out whatever you personally want here, but it doesn't really make a difference. They've been locked out and they're just going to close the page, but there's your option for it. If you really want further customization, maybe instead of Solid Security Network, you could literally say Strength Gym CAPW has flagged your network or something like that, just for like further branding. So next we have authorized IP addresses. And so again, this is your list of authorized IP addresses. You'll notice that your IP address is still here from when you clicked on authorize my IP address, but another really cool feature is automatically temporarily authorizing IP addresses. So you'll see right here, whenever an admin successfully accesses the website after they do their 2-factor authentication and everything, you'll see that Solid Security will prevent their last used IP address from being locked out for 24 hours. So basically, if you log in a different location on your computer successfully, then it'll automatically add your IP address to this authorized list temporarily for 24 hours, which is kind of nice because then you don't have to keep doing everything. Your authorized IP is good to go. So that's completely up to you guys if you want to have this box checked or not. I kind of like it for ease of use, but obviously extra security would say don't do a temporary authorized IP because you might be in an untrusted location. Maybe you logged in on a coffee shop or something like that. Completely up to you. Next is logging, how your event logs should be kept. This definitely has an effect on your web server, so you want to pay attention, but you'll see right here, they kind of give you like a quick description of like what you should do. I believe file only is for like bigger sites and databases for smaller or something like that. You guys can pick what you need based on what you're doing. And you can also choose how many days to keep it backed up. And then everything else I would just leave as automatic. Oh, down here by other, you've got hide security admin bar. That's going to hide this little tab right here. Again, complete personal preference. I think it's fine to leave it right there because if you're logged in and you have access, then it's just an extra spot where you can go straight to the dashboard. So that's up to you guys. And again, once you're done making your changes, always click on save. So then after global settings, we come down to features and oh, perfect. So 2-factor authentication. This is where you can actually set up the settings for 2-factor authentication for all of your employees and users. We'll click the drop down arrow. Well, it's a drop down over here, but you get what I mean. Click on it and you have the methods and the setup flow. So first is methods, and you get to choose, you can specifically choose, or you can just say all methods are available so they can use mobile apps, email messages, backup codes, everything. So I don't know if you guys have probably done 2-factor authentication before. I use a Google app, but you guys can use like the Microsoft app, whatever you want. So you can choose all methods, and then setup flow. You can choose to disable it on the first login, which is kind of cool. So this is just you being nice if you want to enable this one. So basically disabling it on the first login means, if they log in for the first time, you're not going to force it right away, but then the next time they log in, they've got to set up two-factor. Completely up to you, but if you want extra security, I would say they have to set it up initially, which means don't check this box. So anyways, next we'll come over to the firewall, and the firewall is where we can choose all of our individual settings for banning users, the rules that we have, brute force, and network brute force. Under users, you've got your custom bans if you have an IP address that you want to ban or something like that. You've got the default ban list. I would check this box, and it says that you're basically going to have the hackerrepair.com ban list developed by Jim Walker. Might as well just use their ban list because it's already people that they've kind of chosen as illegitimate or malicious IP addresses that you shouldn't be downloading from. So might as well check that box just to have a default ban list ready to go. So that's your ban list. You can go down to firewall rules and you can choose how many violations per IP address. If you want to increase or decrease this, it's completely up to you. And then minutes to remember, basically how long until they can try again, or if it should be remembered. Under there, we have the brute force protection, and this is where you can just choose your login attempt numbers. This is pretty standard when it comes to your website security. So you've got the max login attempts. So after 5 times of putting in the password wrong, it's going to ban their IP, or lock them out, excuse me, and then max login attempts per user. So this is per IP, this is per user. You can either choose to increase or decrease these based on whatever you guys want. And then down here, you've got minutes to remember a bad login right here. And so you can increase or decrease the minutes of how long you're going to remember that. Last, we have network brute force protection, which is different from local because it's basically going to ask you to join a network of websites that all add reports based on bad actors on the internet. So it's kind of like a community watch or like a neighborhood watch, but for a bunch of websites. And so you can join by creating an email address and everything and joining up with them. But I'm just going to save that for another day. So once you're done, you can click on Save Changes again, and then we can move on to the next tab. So that next tab being the site check, you've got 2 features right here that are going to email you. So this is where you can choose if you want more security at the cost of a ton of emails in your inbox. It's totally up to you. We've got file change, which basically is going to notify you via email anytime there's a change to any files on your website, which is great. Adds security. It lets you know whenever someone makes a change to your website, but you're also going to get a ton of emails. So it's personal preference if you want to enable this box or not. I'll leave it checked, and you can always go into your Gmail and set it up where all website emails from your business can go into a specific folder so it's not blowing up your inbox, and you can check those regularly. You don't necessarily need to check this box though if you're going to check your website every day. So this is more of like you decide if you're going to check your website every day, and if you're not, then you might as well have an email letting you know if something happens. Totally up to you. Oh, and then down here is where you can exclude files. So if anyone makes changes to a specific file, then you won't get emailed about it. And you guys can make up your own little custom loadout there. And then you've got site scan scheduling. I would again check this box. This one, fewer emails, I suppose. I was mistaken earlier when I said that. So basically you're going to schedule that your site gets scanned twice a day, not every 2 days. So it's scanned twice a day. And then you're only going to get an email if there's a problem found. So that's pretty nice. So I would definitely check that box. Lastly, we have the utilities tab. And under utilities, I would definitely enforce SSL certificates. So it basically enforces that all connections made to this website are over SSL and TLS. A little segment for you on SSL and TLS. SSL is actually technically kind of like ancient technology. Now everything's done by TLS. These are encryption methods via certificates for your website. So essentially every time you want to make a connection to a web server, what's going to happen is the web server is going to say, hey, here's my certificate that I am who I say I am. And then your computer is going to say, well, here's my certificate. And they basically prove to each other that they are who they say they are. And then in a secure connection is established, and then you can view the website or whatever. That's a very basic, terribly explained way of SSL versus TLS. Well, that's what they are. But basically, you want to enforce that all connections are made with that SSL certificate because it's going to ensure that you have secure connections every single time you try and connect to the back end of your website. So very important. Make sure you check that box. Other than that, we have our database backup settings. And so right now they're enabled. You can schedule to back up your entire database by clicking on this, and then you can decide, your interval, your method. So if you're going to do a backup for your website, you can say email me or save it locally and email me. So it's completely up to you guys. And then you can choose, the backup tables and everything. So that's if you want to back up your database. And then you have the Security Check Pro. I would just leave that checked because it's, detecting the correct way to identify user IP addresses based on your server configuration. That's that first box we checked under the setup wizard that I was telling you guys about earlier. I just leave this checked because it's just helping Solid Security understand what server type you're using so it can make the appropriate choices for you. So once you enable your SSL, just click on save and you're good to go. So next under the main tabs, we have user groups. And if you guys remember a couple seconds ago, this is what we set up earlier. So you've got everybody else, subscribers, contributors, all of this. This is where you can make changes again. Exact same thing. So we don't really need to cover this one. Next, you got the notifications tab. It's going to let you choose again your from email and then the recipients. So it's pretty self-explanatory. And then lastly, we have the advanced tab, which is where the hide backend is right here. So other than that, that's pretty much all you guys need to know as like a beginner tutorial on how to secure your website with solid security. You can always just come back and check your dashboard right here, and you guys can see if there's anything wrong with your website or if there's any bans over here or anything like that. So just make sure you guys are kind of constantly checking to stay informed on what's going on with your website. Now, the next thing I would recommend you do on a pretty regular basis would be to scan your website. From your WordPress dashboard, go down to the security tab, and then you can click on Site Scans. From here, you can scan your site, and it will scan through all of your plugins, themes, WordPress core, and Google Safe browsing, as well as your passwords. That's pretty much everything we're going to be doing inside of the plugin. Your solid security plugin on top of your hosting provider security is going to help you protect your website from all threats, so you can rest easy. Let's talk about some actionables that you can take outside of just downloading this plugin and knowing how everything works. First of all, you want to make sure that you're using a trusted hosting provider to host your website. This goes without saying. If most of your website security is going to be handled through your hosting provider, you want to make sure that you have a really solid hosting company backing you up. If you're with a large hosting company, then you're probably going to be fine. But I would warn you to be extremely leery of using free web hosting for lots of reasons, specifically security reasons. If you don't know what you're doing and you're not paying attention to all of the security specifications that they offer, you could be signing up for web hosting that's not securing your web server at all. Now, I always recommend using Hostinger here at this channel because they are hands down the best hosting company that I've ever worked with. They're compliant with all security industry standards and best security policies. And I gotta say, personally, I've never had a single issue with any of the websites that I've built using them. If you want to check out their security specifications, you can go to the first link that's in the description, or you can go to createaprowebsite.com/hostinger, and you'll be able to check out their pricing table. And if you scroll down, you'll be able to see their security section right here. My recommendation to you is this. Just be sure that you do your research and choose a hosting provider that you can trust if you don't want your website to be hacked. Now, my next actionable would be to stay informed so that you can know the signs and adapt to any situation that you need to. Download your security plugins, constantly keep up to date on the latest security breaches and news, and keep your head on a swivel as well as your ear to the ground to learn anything new that may be happening in the world. As the world is evolving with the release of AI software, new forms of cybercrime are also arising every single day. It's up to you at the end of the day to keep your site secure. Lastly, on top of downloading a plugin and having reliable and secure hosting, you need to make sure that you keep the human part of your website in mind. Ensure that you keep strict security policies in place for you or anyone that has access to an admin account on your website. Like I mentioned before, you can always use a plugin as well as the rules and policies for your own business to really ensure no information gets leaked out. There's lots of policies that you can enforce, like password length and character requirements, and you can also set up for your website to require monthly password changes for your users. You can set up login and session expiration times, and you can also monitor and scan your website frequently. There's lots of steps that you can take to ensure the security of your website connection. And that's all I've got for you today when it comes to securing your WordPress website. If you guys like this video and you want to learn more about how to build a website from start to finish, check out this video right here where I walk you through how to build a WordPress website from start to finish using Elementor. I'll see you guys there.